As a professional speaker, I can walk into a room filled with thousands and inspire and motivate people, no worries. But today, I face the toughest speech of my life. Because my greatest critic is here in the room, and he's never heard me speak before. So I'm quite nervous to receive his feedback. All of you knew my father as a very cheerful man who always loved to laugh and make others feel good about himself. I'm guessing each and every one of you probably remember a moment when you interacted with him and he left a lasting impression on you, and that is how you'll always remember him. While you remember these particular moments of his life, I would like to talk about another side of him that not many people knew about. And it's this other side that highlights what a truly remarkable human being he was, and a great father. Every father has two duties in his life. The first is to protect his family. In this role, my father had the most remarkable skill. He could get anyone out of trouble, even if they caused the trouble in the first place. I remember him one day telling us how he smashed into a police car and walked away without being charged. In fact, he had the police officers apologizing to him for parking their car in his path. Absolutely amazing. He used this skill to resolve many legal complications for the family, but often used it to help others who did not have the ability to fight for themselves. He wasn't always right, but he refused to give up, and that determination simply wore down any adversary, and he would win. My father was also an incredibly generous man. A short while after arriving in Australia, he soon brought over many relatives so that they too could have a better life. And when they arrived, he would give up his bed and sleep on the floor so that they would have all the comforts of the good life of Australia. His generosity also extended to money as well, as he often gave away money to people who he thought were in need of financial help. Unfortunately, this did not always get this right. One time he received a letter from an old army buddy of his who wrote to him complaining how hard life was in Sri Lanka, and Thatha felt sorry for this old friend and immediately sent him 1,000 Australian dollars to help with expenses. The reality of the situation was that his buddy was actually the head of a BMW dealership and made quite good money, but in Sri Lankan tradition, complained about everything to his friends. Along with his generosity and magical ability to get anyone out of trouble, his character and personality also meant that all of us felt safe when he was around. I remember one time when my mother was quite ill and she couldn't stop throwing up. My father grabbed her and held her steady in his arms. She described it as being rescued by the arms of a god. It doesn't surprise me. He loved her more than life itself. When he was around, we all felt protected. He performed this first duty of a father perfectly. The second duty of a father is to ensure that his children can survive the challenges of the world. And this perhaps was the most frustrating part for all of us, because he came from a very different world with a very different set of challenges. In his world, academic excellence equated to life fulfillment, but the world we live in today is quite different, and we need new skills in order to survive and thrive. Academic excellence will only get you so far. As a British-trained Sri Lankan army officer, he tried to ensure all of us had the best education possible in order to set us up for life, and drilled into us the importance of studying hard to get a good job. Unfortunately, the three of us, as children of a British-trained Sri Lankan army officer, had other plans, and we took a very different path to the one he tried to lead us down. Nonetheless, the true test of a leader is their influence, directly and indirectly. And when I look at my brothers, I see his influence in them deeply. When Nalinaya pulls a crowd of people with, "You know what happened then, brass," stories, he gets that from our father. And if you've ever had the pleasure of having a conversation with Anuraya, you'll notice he has this beautiful ability to be with you in the moment and instantly make you feel better, even if your whole world is collapsing around you. That's our father. Those without those gifts to you both, and I hope you cherish them dearly. My father's gift to me was a little different, and it was only over the past year that I started to realize exactly what it was. Throughout last year, he was sick with various minor health issues, and being the headstrong army captain that he was, he never listened to advice and always thought he knew better. Each time I came up from Melbourne, I discovered a new issue and tried to fix them for him because I wanted him to live longer. Getting old is not a medical condition, it is a state of mind, and even though he had given up on himself, I refused to give up on him. Unfortunately, during the course of my actions, I had to say and do things that no son should ever be allowed to say and do to his father. But I did them because they had to be done. And sadly, it was the only way he would respond and change his behavior for the better. That got me thinking about how he raised me. During his last few days in hospital, some were good and some were bad. But despite whatever was going on medically, he would always slip back into his usual larger-than-life self and make everyone around him feel better. Nurses, doctors, even fellow patients in the room, no one escaped his unbelievable charm. One nurse felt so comfortable around him, he ended up calling my parents Mum and Dad and started introducing to himself to our visitors like he was part of the family. That was my father. Always made you feel welcome. During his last night in hospital, he was a little restless, so I stayed back with him to settle him down. I tucked him into bed and played some Pirith to calm him down. He said, "Puta, I'm cold." So I covered him with an extra blanket. He said, "Puta, the Pirith is too loud." So I turned it down. He said, "Puta, can you hold my hand?" And I did. And together we sat there like that for an hour or so. And when I thought he was asleep, I got to sneak out of the room, and like a cheeky little kid, he waited until I was at the door and called out to me, "Puta te budu saranai, devi ange pitai." I walked back over to him, wished him the same, and kissed his head. He was deeply satisfied, and he finally went to sleep. As I walked out of the hospital that night, thinking about how our roles had been reversed over the past year, I finally realized what his gift was to me. And a few hours later, he was gone. I cry now not because of my loss, but out of the gratitude of a student who finally learned the lessons from a great teacher. Thank you, Tata. I'm finally the leader you always wanted me to be. Protect the family, train your children to survive the world. Mission accomplished, Captain. Magiratarang Tatata, Buddha Saranai, Devyanga Pitai. You will forever live on in our hearts as the epitome of greatness, a God who walks amongst men. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.